we are switching from a laptop to an iPad, and we've got a camera facing right at the candidate so that you guys can hold the switch. Now you guys can see Lawrence is okay. You can see the candidate. Oh, thank you. Thank you for the thank you. Okay. So is everybody able to see candidates? I'm going to spotlight them for you. All right. Does that look good to my virtual attendees? You guys look great over there, by the way. Awesome. So, big favor for my virtual attendees, please remain seated. All right. Okay. Everybody ready? Everybody else who's recording this? All right. Sorry, what was that? All right, good evening, everyone. Good evening. My name is Candace Tiana Nelson. I am the proud president of the Ward 4 Democrats of Washington, D.C. I have lived pretty much next door for 16 years and been in the Ward 4 Democrats for 16 years. I feel like I've been raised in this organization, and I've been able, you guys have allowed me to be the president of this organization for the last 8 years, but 8 is enough. That was the name of the TV show. So this is the last time I will be moderating one of these, and it is kind of special to me and all that, but I will hold back the tears. Now, give you my rules of the day. All the candidates received those via email earlier. But I also wanted to make sure that I just highlight a few people in the room that are also members of the Ward 4 Democrats. I would like for Tiffany Nicole Johnson to stand up and wave. She's our second VP, and she's also the timekeeper tonight. So she's going to help keep this in an orderly fashion with nice, beautiful signs that are green, yellow, and red. Green, you're doing all right. Yellow, get ready to get that question wrapped up, that response wrapped up, and stop, means stop. So that's what the candidates will be seeing today. Dr. Kirby, if you could wave your hand. He is one of our Ward 4 committee men. He and Renee Bowser, if you could hold, wave your hands, everyone. She is the Ward 4 committee woman, and they will be passing out cards to you that if you have questions, out there in the crowd, and we have time to get to those, they will put those in a category, and we have education, public safety, affordable housing, and they bring them up to me, and then I will read them. So I'm going to help you with your voice tonight. So look for Dr. Kirby and Renee. Lawrence right here in the middle is our logistical person. He's making a lot of this happen tonight. So let's give all of those folks around. We have Jennifer Hara, she can wave. She's a former executive committee member, but she's also helping us when it comes to the board and with the DC Dems. And we have Ann Strauss in the back. She is also a Ward 4 committee woman. So those are all the team members that I see right now. And now I'm going to read through the rules of the day, just so that you guys are aware of what the candidates have been told. This event is in person and virtual form, a hybrid event, one held simultaneously in person and virtually via Zoom. And the chosen platform for all of our hosts today, I do want to acknowledge the DC Democratic Party, who is as well as Democratic Black Caucus. So let's give those two organizations a hand. During the forum, only the moderator and the candidates will be visible to those that are viewing, in addition to themselves. And the hosts, we reserve the right to record this forum, which we've already done, or we're already doing. And we reserve the right to share this as well, via email to our membership or even on listservs if people ask for us to do so. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to give an opening and closing statement. The order of the statements shall be determined by alphabetical order, and we will get to that very shortly. This will be a minimum of 60 minutes, but I have a feeling that we will be using our full 2-hour time in here tonight. You guys look very interested in writing and talk. So, with that, the questions. Let's get to that right after I finish this rule of the day.
Sorry.
Thank you. The questions have been solicited from members of our sponsoring organizations and the public, and each of our candidates will have 2 minutes to respond to each question, and an additional minute to 30 seconds for any rebuttal. So that means if a candidate is named and an answer from another candidate, will allow them to have a rebuttal. We have the timekeeper who we've already introduced. She will be holding up a sign at 1 minute. That's the green one. 30 seconds. That's the yellow one. And when time is up, that's the red one. Also, the moderator shall enforce all the rules and the time limits, and the moderator may interpret any participant and just basically enforce these rules, these formats, and try to keep folks orderly. But I have a great feeling that everyone is feeling orderly and fantastic. Candidates, you are not allowed to interrupt each other. Okay, so if you want to address one another, just make sure you holler at me and I can call on the other candidate. Crowd, no distractions. Crowd, no distractions. Okay? More people tuned in into insanity.
No what?
Distractions. Oh, okay. That was timely, but I felt like that was a distraction. I felt like that was a distraction. So, you were right on time with a great example right there. So, thank you for your participation. That was fantastic. Okay. All right, we've done the rules of the day, so now I'm just going to ask for our candidates to just give me a hand, a wave, a yay, and nay. Are you in agreement to these rules of the day?
I do.
All right. Let's get this party started, folks. For our opening statements, as I said, we would go in alphabetical order, but let's shake it up a bit and go backwards. So let's start with Johnson. Mr. Johnson, 2 minutes, opening statement. Let's get it going.
Thank you, Madam President. You can count on me to shake things up. I'm pleased to see a lot of friends and colleagues and members of the community that I've worked with over my time here in the ward. Here, standing before you on Emancipation Day to say thank you for considering me as your next Ward 4 council member. I'm running because I am deeply concerned about the state of the ward and the state of the district, and concerned about the future. And as a resident of the district for 15 years and a resident of Ward 4 for 7 years, and a father and a husband with a daughter in first grade. I'm concerned about her safety, and I'm concerned about the safety of my family and the ability for her to prosper and to learn. And I'm concerned about the style of approach of leadership with respect to solving problems and practically solving problems in a way that my neighbors and constituents are telling me that they're concerned about with respect to quality of life, livability, prosperity, and solving problems. So I'm happy to be here and happy to talk more about my qualifications. And thank you again.
Thank you. Ms. Gore.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for coming out today. My name is Lisa Gore, and I'm a candidate for the Ward 4 Council seat. I am a mom to a son that graduated from DC Public Schools and also attended charter school here. I am a 2-term ANC commissioner, and thank you for my commissioners that are here today, regardless of your support. And I am currently chair of the ANC 34G. And most of you all that know me, you know that my #1 issue that I'm concerned with is public safety. That's born from my experience and my personal background. I started my public safety career right here in Washington, D.C. as a juvenile probation officer, bilingual Spanish speaking, serving kids and making sure that they were accountable for the crimes they committed and to the conditions of the court. And in that capacity, I also worked with kids and families to make sure that they had the services they need. I was a certified addiction counselor, so I did a lot of counseling and provided services for them. From there, I was at the U.S. Customs Service in San Juan, Puerto Rico, where I spent time investigating the illegal smuggling of commodities into our communities that made our communities unsafe. I was a special agent and senior manager at the IG's Office of HUD, where I spent a lot of time protecting tenants and families and making sure that their living conditions were safe. But I stand before you not just as a candidate, but as a unwavering, committed public servant. I am concerned about the safety of our community. With my background and experience, I understand its challenge firsthand, and I believe that I have the solutions to the issues that we deserve in Ward 4. I'm committed to making Ward 4 a better, more stronger place. My experience is unmatched. My resolve is unwavering. And I look forward to talking to you tonight about the rest of my platform. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Janice Lewis George. I am a 3rd-generation Washingtonian, born and raised right here in Ward 4. I'm a proud DC Public School graduate. I'm a proud Howard University Law School graduate. I am a proud former Assistant Attorney General who's worked in juvenile prosecution. I am also a proud woman of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, but I love the whole divine word. And I'm also a proud woman of faith in God as we sit in this place and who I put first. 4 years ago when you came to me, you said you wanted a council member who would deliver, that was going to use every tool they had, from budget to oversight to constituent services and legislation to deliver for residents. And I did just that. I knocked doors and I remember what you asked me to do. I remember the call 16th Street Heights had for an all-electric bus barn, and I delivered on it. I remember the call Shepherd Park asked for me to fight for their library and their school boundary, and I delivered on it. I remember the families of Riggs Park asking to support our seniors and to support so many of our students through our School Connect program, and we delivered on it. I talked to neighbors in Petworth about a Main Street and getting those things done, and I delivered. Able to deliver for our seniors, fighting for SNAP benefits so that they had food on their table, expanding transportation. I've been able to deliver for our students, modernizations for Whittier, expanding Roosevelt, and so many others. I've been able to deliver on public safety, the enforcement, the interventions on Kennedy Street and Petworth. And so I'm a person who delivers for every neighborhood, who delivers for every community, and delivers for every Ward 4 resident. And that's what I plan to continue to do for the next 4 years if you'll have me. Thank you.
let's get right to it. What do you see are the two most important duties of the Ward 4 council member? And we'll start this time with Ms. Lisa Wood.
So I think the two most important duties of the Ward 4 council member, number one is strong constituent services. Thank you. We have an issue in Ward 4 that is unmatched in terms of the number of complaints that not only my constituents and my ANC have had, but the number of complaints that we have heard in the community. My campaign has knocked hundreds of doors, we've made thousands of calls, we spent time talking to thousands of people in this ward, and by far, public safety is number one, constituent services is number two. Our seniors primary, our seniors have told us over and over that their needs are not being met in the ward. Their calls are going unanswered. They go to Ward 4 Mini Commission of Aging, the council member is not there. The council member is not taking the time to make meetings and spend time with them to address their issues. We have heard seniors talk about fear of their public safety, scared to go to the ATM, scared to go out and do community events. So in terms of the top two issues, definitely public safety and constituent services. As a council member, we have to treat each person with the utmost respect in this ward. And that comes first. We definitely need to make good legislation, but I feel like the primary role that we need to expand upon is making sure that people in this community are served, they're served respectfully, and that our legislative needs bubble up from the top of your needs. Not organizations, not groups, but your needs. The only way, as a council member, will understand your needs is by talking to you consistently, listening to your needs, having an excellent constituent service team, and delivering on those promises, and that's what I intend to do.
So the question is the duties of the council member?
The question is, what do you see are the two most important duties of the Ward 4 council member?
Well, the first thing is to be committed. Is to be committed to the residents and the neighbors of Ward 4 and not have your eye off the ball. Secondly, I would say is, and the ball is the quality of life of residents that are here and neighbors in Ward 4. And in order to do that, we need to be community-based, community-rooted. We need to be present. You need to understand what your neighbors are telling you, and you need to work every day on those. You bring to bear your attitude, your experience. I think that this is a very practical ward. This is a homeowning ward. It's a ward with tenants as well, and solutions need to be practical, not ideological. And we need to work on getting things done and fully representative of the full spectrum of our community, which includes seniors who need to age in place. They include families like myself who have caretaking responsibilities, as when my mother got ill and had brain surgery and had to come down and live with us for 2 years. I needed to know about First Baptist Church Senior Center. And I was proud to engage and work with First Baptist Church Senior Center and be told that people aren't talking to us. People aren't working with us to deliver on the things that we need and our priorities. So the most important duty is to know your neighbors, know your constituencies, focus on them, and work together to bring together government resources, the private sector resources, and bring people together to solve problems, which I've done as chair of ANC, which I've done working in the private sector, which I've done working for government, mediating in DC Superior Court, and I'll bring that to bear to solve problems. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think the first thing is to deliver for your community through the budget, which is a $21 billion budget, through oversight work, through legislation, and through constituent services. And it's not a separate thing. Let me give you an example of that. A constituent services issue that continued to come up was abandoned vehicles happening in our neighborhoods. a systemic solution to that was, instead of just solving the one abandoned vehicle for the neighbors in that community, I wrote legislation called abandoned vehicles legislation, which ended up changing the criteria so we could take more abandoned vehicles out of all neighborhoods. It's when I went to heard to our students in our schools and found out we didn't have traffic safety around them. I didn't wait for DDOT to do it. I wrote legislation, Safe Routes to School Act, funded that legislation so all of our schools could have traffic safety around them. You have to do it all at the same time. And it's important that you use your legislative tools to do that. This budget, a $19 billion budget, is so important to balance. And you gotta make sure you have money for your senior centers, money for your recreation centers, money for your schools, money for your roads. And that's the work that I do every day. And when you're not at the building, fighting for the funds for your community, fighting for doing the oversight and the legislative work, constituent services issues happen because agencies aren't getting the oversight they need to be able to respond to community members. And you have to show up in community and get their concerns, which is why I'm the only council member who shows up every January and does a Listen As We Climb tour. In every single neighborhood, every January, I show up and ask neighbors, what are our results for this year? What do we want to accomplish? It's also why I do my community care days every spring and fall, where I knock doors in every neighborhood in the community and bring the agencies that need resources to our community. And it's why I'm the only council member who does a weekly newsletter to make sure our community is involved. You have to do all of those things at the same time, and I've been proud to be able to deliver budget oversight and make sure that our community gets the things that they deserve. Thank you.
Last month, the topic of our membership meeting was a forum to inform on Initiative 83, which is, if enough signatures are obtained on the petition, could be a referendum on the ballot in November, allowing voters to choose whether DC will have open primaries and ranked choice voting. Do you support Initiative 83? Yes or no, and why? And we'll start with Ms. Denise Lewis-George this time.
I support the spirit of Initiative 83, which is making our democracy better. But our district of Columbia, we have been one of the most innovative in this country. We have a fair elections program that diversifies our electoral base. We're one of the only people that have early voting for 7 days. We're one of the only jurisdictions that have mail-in ballots. We're one of the only jurisdictions who have ballot drop boxes. We're the only jurisdictions where you can actually register on the day and vote. As it relates to open primaries, it's not something that I think we need here in the District of Columbia. Why? Because even in our primaries, independents can actually register for the Democratic Party and vote in our primaries and then register back for the general election. So open primaries is something I don't think we need here in the district. I understand for other jurisdictions, I don't think it's something we need here. And so I think we should be proud of where we are as the district. As we have shown, I think an example, and I hear from district residents all the time, and from other jurisdictions, wow, the district has really done so much great work around open ballot access, and I think we should be proud of the work that we have done. Ranked choice voting is something we saw in New York City and others as a way to diversify their ballot, diversify the ballot and be able to choose different candidates. It's something I'm open to and something I'm open to learning about. But as it stands, I think we have fair elections. We have so many voter outreach that we need to have right now. And so I'm proud of where we are as a district, and I think other district residents should be proud of where we are too. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Gore.
So to answer your question specifically, no, I do not support Initiative 83. One of the concerns that I had with the initiative is around the open primaries. I do prefer that Democratic primaries stay Democratic. And secondly, I do not support ranked choice voting. I once had a position on ranked choice voting. I have since talked to many people, including many seniors that not only worked on ranked choice voting initiatives in Washington, D.C., but also seniors that worked on ranked choice voting issues across the country. And those conversations really allowed me to understand and appreciate and respect the issues that ranked choice voting will have with our senior population here in Washington, D.C. And we definitely need to strengthen our voting resources here for seniors, education, but I don't think Initiative 83 is the way we should go at this time. Thank you.
And Mr. Paul Johnson.
Thank you. Firm no on I-83, no on semi-open primaries, and no on ranked choice voting. And I associate myself with the position of the DC Democratic Party, as well as the Black Caucus within the DC Democratic Party. And I also, it's important that you have the same message amongst all your audiences. You know, I'm pleased to hear that both of my colleagues have come around to this position, but it's important to consistently have the same message about what works in the district, about not encouraging meddling in our elections, and making sure that statehood and the power, voting power and representation of Washingtonians is maximized, not minimized. And that's part of being involved in your community, being in step with your neighbors and what your constituents are telling you, whether it's the need for jobs, whether it's the need for training, whether it's the need for greater voice in civic participation. We don't want that diluted. No on I-83. I've always consistently had that opinion, and I share that with my colleagues as the elected Ward 4 Democratic Committeeman to the DC Dems. I'm happy to have consistently had that position. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I sensed it from you too. Yes, rebuttals, 30 seconds.
There's no change position here as it relates to open primaries. I've stated that I haven't been supportive of open primaries since I've been a Democrat, which is since I was able to register to vote here in DC when I turned 18 years old. And so there's no change of position there. As it relates to ranked choice voting, legislation came before the council. It never got a hearing. We never got to hear it out. And so we never had a chance to even consider it. And it's no longer before us at this time. The one thing I want to make clear is that it's an initiative, and the vote is going to be with you all. That's the end of the conversation. So when you go to the ballot box, you'll have to vote whether you want this initiative there or not. And whatever your vote is, my promise is that I'm going to respect the will of the voters on initiative 83. Thank you.
Thank you. So just to clarify as well, Paul, my stance on Initiative 83, since it came into fruition, has always been no. That's great. Thank you.
Any rebuttal from you, Mr. Johnson, since you were named? You get 30 seconds.
Thank you, appreciate that. Well, no, I'm just proud to be a member of the DC Democratic Party. I'm a Democrat, no addendum to being a Democrat, and I think that we need to look at the people that are with us and behind us and next to us, and I think that it's very important to protect voting rights here in the district. It's important to protect statehood. I'm happy to stand with the Black Caucus consistently that always talked about meddling and outside interests, and I'm proud to associate myself with that consistently from the beginning. Thank you.
Thank you. For my folks who are standing in the back, do you need us to get more chairs?
I always check with.
Okay.
Thank you.
Just check. Would you like?
No, I wouldn't.
Okay, just checking.
But thank you for checking.
I feel you because I'm also standing. I feel like we're in this together. We got a little ways to go. Stretch on. Okay. Sticking with the initiatives, let's talk about an initiative that was up a few years ago, and that's Initiative 82. And some would say, or they would call it the campaign to end tip wage system. It was basically, the Initiative 77 revisited, right? And so as we know, the people in the District of Columbia, their decision, determined by a high percentage of votes in favor of the referendum, was overturned by the City Council. So I'd like to know what your thoughts are on how the council's action affected public trust, and what would you do to improve public trust? And this time, I think I'm supposed to be starting with Mr. Johnson.
So the initiative and the measures passed, I think the will of the people should be respected. And I think that we also should understand that economic prosperity is something that's shared. We need to work with our business owners, our independent, small, Black-owned, Latino-owned, immigrant business owners to help them successfully transition in such a manner that our neighborhoods are viable, our neighborhood commercial corridors are strong, and that's always at the forefront of my mind because we need to grow the economic pie, we need to support jobs, we need to get youngsters in our community to have viable alternatives through jobs, and I'm pleased to have done that work as ANC chair to actually take the lead on delivering the Main Street, working through the budget cycle with the chair of the Business and Economic Committee, Chairman McDuffie, and I, in my capacity as chair of ANC 4C, was the one to deliver that Main Street, as well as helping businesses like Entitlement Lounge, businesses like Alexis Flowers when there's invoice problems, when there's language barriers with businesses in terms of interacting with zoning and liquor licenses. Viable, healthy, economic communities are at the forefront of my mind in helping our small businesses to be prosperous and hire locally. Thank you.
Thank you. Just pass it to Ms. Liz George.
So Initiative 77, which happened in 2018, which was when I wasn't on the council at the time, it's actually one of the reasons I ended up running for council because of the ways in which I felt that the voters had voted overwhelmingly in a number of precincts that they wanted to see workers have a tip minimum wage. And it was very personal for me because during my time in law school, I actually worked as a tip worker at the Fire Station restaurant up the street in Silver Spring. I would recommend Old Bay Wings, but they have now closed. But during my time there, we made $3.83 an hour. And if you didn't get any tips that hour or those hours, you were out. And that led to so much because we had to bargain with I had coworkers who had 3 kids who were starting school. And instead of me taking the big table, I just said, you take the table. Even though I knew that we all needed the money, we all needed to survive in this city with the growing cost. And so I felt it was important to speak out about that as someone, as a Black woman who had been a tip worker. Harassment comes along with needing tips, but need what you will accept because of the need for tips. So I went out and I told my story when Initiative 77 happened. And I went out again and I told it when Initiative 82 happened. And Initiative 82 passed in every single precinct in this city. Not one precinct voted against it. So an overwhelming group of people said, our tip workers need to be making more and making a minimum wage per hour. And the way you respect the will of the voters is by not overturning it and by working together. And we do need to work with our small businesses to make sure we transition, and that's the work that we've been doing every day through our main streets. And I was proud to fund the Petworth Main Street as well as Tacoma, help with the funding of Tacoma Main Street. And proud that we have 5 main streets here in Ward 4 that I have put forward and I've helped fund and continue to support our small businesses as they transition, but as our restaurant industry transitions too. Thank you.
I'll give you a chance for rebuttals after Ms. Gore has a chance to make her comments.
So, just simply, Initiative 82 definitely was an initiative that I think was needed in the city. I don't think there's any question that the wages that our restaurant workers were earning were subpar. DC is an incredibly expensive city. Affordable housing is, not as substantial as we wanted, and costs continue to rise. But I think the most important thing is that this was an initiative that was supported overwhelmingly by the majority of the city, vast overwhelming majority. And as a member of the council, I think it's critically important when you have initiatives like this, regardless of your position, you have to bend to the will of the people. And that is something that, comes with experience and expertise. So we did have some issues on that, but I think going forward, hopefully, As council members, they will respect the will of the people. I know I will as a council member, and if people vote on an initiative, including ones that I don't agree with, just like Initiative 83, I will not vote to overturn that decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we have a 30-second rebuttal in the same order for anyone who's interested. So Johnson, Lewis, George.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that follow through is important as a council member. It's one thing to have the initiative passed and the will of the voters passed, but you also have to follow up and go back and check on those businesses, right? They need fast track the implementation, first of all. They also need, with respect to the service fee and charge, there are businesses on Kennedy Street that I have talked through that say, we need help. We need help getting the message out about what we're doing, and that requires knowing your constituency, having healthy economic corridors, and being present for your businesses to make that successful.
Thank you.
To fast tracking it, when voters voted for the Initiative 82, they actually voted for a timeline within the initiative, and that was to do this over a staggered period of time, a 5-year period, so that businesses wouldn't bluntly feel the force of this, and we could daily phase this in and make things better. And so a part of respecting the will of the voters is respecting the timeline in which the will of the voters asks for, which is an extended timeline so that we don't hit the businesses hardest. And so I am respecting the will of the voters by respecting that timeline, and also respecting our small businesses by giving them the time they need to be able to be successful in this new initiative work. Thank you.
Ms. Moore, do you have a rebuttal?
No.
Mr. Johnson, you've had your 30 seconds. Just one first question. Hear that often, thank you. Okay, now we're going to move to another topic. This topic is on public safety. I'm going to ask Dr. Kirby stay near as we start to shift the topics, but just continue to collect from the audience. Okay. So, public safety. Let's get right to it. What have you done to increase public safety for Ward 4 residents? What do you believe is the role of a legislator in increasing public safety? Those of you who know me, I'm a geek with this, right? Legislative branch, executive branch, judiciary branch. They got different functions. So I will repeat that. What do you believe is the role of the legislator in increasing public safety? Okay. So I went with Mr. Johnson on that. I'll go to Ms. Gore, Lewis George, and then Mr. Johnson will end with you.
So I think the role of the legislator is multiple. For one, you need to ensure the safety of your people, number one. And that includes making sure that legislation supports not only MPD, but is good in that it's protective of citizens through that public safety of citizens with that lens first. In terms of what I've done, I think that was part of your question. As a Ward 4 commissioner, I've worked with my community on public safety issues. I've held meetings with MPD. I'm also a 27-year retired law enforcement official. So the solution to public safety is partially a conversation with our neighbors and our residents to make sure they feel involved in this process. One of the things that I think is happening in Ward 4 is that we have a council member that looks to, criminals and protects the criminal element more so than the public, the public. She voted against the emergency crime legislation for the summer, which was very shocking. I think the reason was pre-trial detention. She was one of the only no votes for an emergency legislation during eviction that would have allowed or prevented people that were deemed a threat to public safety, so to not evict them. I spoke to a landlord here in Ward 4 that talked about how that impacted his residents. He talked about women in his building with kids that were single moms that lived in rent-controlled buildings that had virtually nowhere else to go because of the low rent that they were paying. But they had to stay trapped in those buildings because of the refusal of the council member's office to help them with the eviction process. So I think in terms of the council member's role, we have to listen to community. We have to make sure that our lens is from a public service lens, and that is from a lens of community members that are living here in the community and deserve to live safely, and that, you know, the legislation that proposed should strengthen those aspects. Thank you.
Thank you. Undoubtedly, public safety is the number one issue we face as a district. And I'm proud of the work that we've been able to do, because even right now, violent crime is down 24% and 30%, particularly here in Ward 4. I'm the only council member and candidate, both, who's ever been a prosecutor, who's actually prosecuted crimes in the district. Just to say that I support criminals and our service is to the people of the community. And that was my career before I entered the position. I served as a prosecutor both in Philadelphia, and then I came here and served as a prosecutor here in the Attorney General's office. When it comes to crime in this community, I have done a three-pronged approach. I focused on intervention work, prevention work, and enforcement work. And I through all of those through the nexus of budget legislation oversight as well. When it comes to prevention work, I funded a Warren's Leadership Academy in our schools to make sure young people are not being recruited at young ages to different crews and gangs, which we were seeing. I've been able to have job fairs on Kennedy Street to make sure Kennedy Street people could get the work they needed to do. When it came to intervention work, I actually sat in on ceasefires between crews who were shooting back and forth. I brought violence interruption to Petworth to cure the streets violence interruption, and violence interruption to the Kennedy Street neighborhood. In addition to that, I'm the only council member who's actually funded her 4th district. I heard from my 4th district that we didn't have the same amount of cameras as every other district. I put a last-minute budget amendment in there, and I was able to get cameras just for our 4th district station so that we would be made whole. I've done work. We are the only ward who had federal enforcement happen, and that was through the federal enforcement that happened on Kennedy Street to break up the gangs and crews that we've been able to do there. I brought every agency to bear vacant and blighted properties on Kennedy Street. I brought made sure that that community had what it needed. So we've been able to do intervention, prevention, and enforcement work, and that's what it takes. Through my oversight, I have fought against the crime lab not being accredited, so we could actually prosecute our cases. And that's what it takes to improve safety, and that's what we've seen both at Kennedy Street and Petworth. That coordination work is what matters. Thank you.
That's nice rhetoric, but I don't think reality. When you go on Kennedy Street as I do, you will not hear those testimonials. If you go into volunteers, so I mediated inside of DC jail for conflict resolution with guys coming home. I mediated in DC Superior Court. I've walked on opioid prevention and distribution with Volunteers of America. We've gone out. I've done this myself, and all of these residents when they've outreached, they haven't gotten answers, satisfactory answers, if answers at all. So I think with public safety, it's ultimately a community problem. And in order to empower the community to solve the problem, you have to be embedded with the community and understand, give them a reason to participate and broaden the pie. You also have to message properly about violent crime not being acceptable. It's one thing to say being a prosecutor now, but that hasn't been the messaging over the past 3 or 4 years. When there are provisions to secure or stem a crime crisis, like the masking provision, you need to not weaken the crime bill and put forth a masking provision. There are incidences along Georgia Avenue where honest, hardworking sons of the community have been murdered, and with the assailants at large, in large part due to legislation that was championed by the Councilmember. We need to stand up and say
We're at time.
that violent behavior is wrong, but we also need to empower on the preventative side, as I have done.
Cheers. Right. I had a feeling. Let's get it in order. Rebuttal time, 30 seconds time.
So to make this quick, everyone, look at the voting record. This is very simple. And you will understand what we're talking about when we say the record doesn't meet the actions. Vote no on emergency crime legislation. Vote no on allowing dangerous tenants to remain in a house. Vote to leave the retail theft penalty at $1,000. Every piece of legislation that was voted on is not in your interest. That's a fact. And so you can look at the record, you can look at the votes, and you determine for yourself, is it better for you or is it better for the person that committed the crime?
30 seconds. Thank you.
I just want to actually get in the voting record, and because I am a detailed legislature, and I want to make sure that when we do legislation, we're not doing and so I focus on ways in which we won't do harm, and I look at it from a practical approach. And so for the emergency crime bill, we were about to change a legal statute on a 90-day basis. As a prosecutor, I know that we can't change a legal statute just for 90 days. Why? Because the judges, the defense attorneys, and the prosecutors all need a period of time to be able to communicate those laws to whoever their client is. And so it was impractical for us to do that, and I said we should take that out. But I have 30 seconds for his rebuttal and then Lisa's rebuttal. They both figuring at two different angles. I'm going to defer to the chair, but it was two different. It was two different people, so that was two different rebuttals. If someone mentions you, you get to respond to them. So both candidates
I did say that. I also did say that it's 30 seconds. So,
30 seconds each. All right, we'll have an opportunity. I will say, please check the voting record. Also check the results.
I'm sure there'll be another chance for another rebuttal. One more person in. Okay. I want to make it fair so that we are asking every candidate all the same questions. So I do have some questions that are geared to specific candidates that are up here, two in particular. So I will hold those aside. We can either get you answers later or we can figure it out at the end. But I will move forward with the questions that are for all the candidates. One question for all the candidates, and this one is kind of a statement. For the residents of Langdon Avenue, and it looks like Mathington Drive, Beach Drive, must be open during the week?
Yep. Yep.
Reopen.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I'll add the word address in front of that. So address this matter. So address the safety concerns there for opening Beach Drive during the week.
Point of clarity.
Yes.
So, address.
I mean, are you? I'll word it in a different way. Are you open?
spend time outdoors. So they could walk, bike, whatever it is you want to do, roller skate, your thing. People got so excited about Beach Drive being open, and people were using it because people were stuck in their homes and they needed to go outside. So everyone got excited. And so the people said, well, we love it so much. And so the issue with it is Beach Drive is National Park Service land, which means we actually don't have any say as the District of Columbia. It is their choice. It is their choice, National Park Service choice. I will say this. I heard from neighbors from Hawthorne, Chevy Chase, Shepherd Park, and others about this. I raised concerns. There was a resolution that Councilmember Che, at the time he was Transportation and Environment person, put forward. And I asked and I voted to stall the legislation because I said we don't have enough facts, we want to do this. It ultimately lost. I didn't have enough votes. I voted the way I voted, but everybody else overwhelmingly voted for it. No one knows whether that tipped the scale or didn't. It could have said, oh yes, we can or we can't, but ultimately the decision was with National Park Service. And so that's one of those things where statehood and National Park Service go hand in hand. What I've done as a result of that is focus on the communities that have been impacted. And so, for example, Crestwood was impacted deeply, and we had people driving, speeding through because they couldn't go through Beach Drive, so they were cutting through to get to 16th Street. That's why we put ATE, automated traffic enforcement there. We're having a stop light put at 16th and Ladder, speed humps, to support the residents both of Crestwood, Shepherd Park, as well as Hawthorne, Chevy Chase, and Barnaby Woods, who were also impacted by the National Park Service decision. So while I couldn't do anything about their decision, I could do something about traffic safety in the neighborhoods, and that's what I was able to do. So thank you.
So this was an issue that started in my ANC, and I'm actually the single member district commissioner for this area. So I did get in contact with the Councilmember's office to come to our community and talk about the issue with the neighbors. We definitely had a split on this, so just to kind of go back to the history, with a lot of neighbors that wanted to see it open, and then we had a lot of neighbors that wanted to see it closed. At that time, we definitely had traffic impacts because Oregon Avenue was also closed at the same time. Now, this is, and I will agree with the council member, I can tell you this is an NPS matter. I've dealt with NPS on this issue. I've dealt with Eleanor Holmes Norton on this issue to try to get them to come in and talk to the community, which they did. Once they made their decision, we have not heard anything back in terms of making that decision, you know. I've had people in my district that asked me to go back to NPS and try to have those discussions, and as a commissioner, I've done that. I have not gotten contacted, so I think it's probably a done deal with NPS, but I agree we must address the traffic issues. In my door knocking, talking to people that live in Crestwood and throughout that area, including my area, which is Hawthorne, I know there has been an impact of traffic to that area, including, you know, increased traffic. So the best way for us to address it is to look at those traffic infrastructure improvements. But I would definitely love to see the data, because I know from working that as a commissioner, the data was pre-COVID. I would like to see the data post-COVID to see what the traffic impacts are to that area, and if there is a strong argument for NPS to reopen it back up.
Thank you.
I think it's important to listen to what your constituents are telling us, and I think clearly the congestion is an issue, and it causes safety problems, it causes traffic safety problems, which is also a part of public safety. And a word on public safety, I think it's important to not deflect to others about what others are not doing. When you're the highest elected leader in Ward 4 and a member of the community, you go in there and you get in there and you get involved. You find organizations like Streetline that are pouring into young people, that are providing mental health supports, and you promote and you elevate them. You promote organizations like Community Mediation DC, as I have been a board member of and have mediated to resolve conflicts. You work with the executive when they visit your ward and they walk up and down Georgia Avenue. You're not absent. So you don't act as if it's someone else's problem. You get in there and you get involved. You also understand the interrelationships between jobs, between training and jobs, between resentments from young people who don't feel a part of the community. Whether it's a pathway to earn money, whether it's a pathway to be involved in civic engagements and decisions that are made locally. I'm deeply rooted in the community of Petworth and where I live and around the ward, and that guides and undergirds my philosophy to provide pragmatic solutions, listening to people, synthesizing the feedback that you get from the broad sector of the community, and working together in a practical, non-ideological way in the service of the residents and neighbors of Ward 4.
Rebuttals? Any rebuttals?
Well, let me just say this, I've worked with so many organizations, particularly since we're in the church. We started a Ward for faith leaders against gun violence. We did unequivocally say we're tired of gun violence in our city. We stood on Georgia and Kennedy, faith leaders and roving leaders and so many others, and we said crime needs to stop in our community. Our faith leaders show up every single time with me. We have a policy in my office that there is a gun crime in our ward, particularly if someone is hurt or a property is damaged, that my team will come out in 48 hours, knock doors, talk to neighbors, and connect people with services, and we do that. We also work with so many of our programs like Coach Lou at Emory Heights Community Center, like Sharice with Life Success Center, Life Success Center, Collaborative Solutions. There's so many community partners. It takes a community to solve public safety, and I've worked with every single community entity, and it has been an honor to do so. Thank you.
Okay. I think some of you have started to answer this next question, but I will ask it. What improvements need to be made to the criminal justice system and the Department of Youth Rehabilitation Services? Ms. Gore?
Well, I think there are quite a few things that we can do with the criminal justice system, especially here in DC. Most of you guys know that DC is part of the federal system, so we have the U.S. Attorney's Office, we have the local prosecutors here, so we have kind of a bifurcated system. One of the things I think we really need to do is have better relationships with our U.S. Attorney's Office. It's tough, it's challenging. I've worked in this system for my 20 plus years right here with the DC U.S. Attorney's Office, and I can tell you they are not only we're not only competing to get prosecutions for our local adult crimes, but you're also competing against every federal agency. So I was a Fed, and I would bring my cases to the U.S. Attorney's Office, and I would advocate for them to be prosecuted. So we have to have some kind of connection, a better, stronger connection to the U.S. Attorney's Office so that they understand how difficult it is for us to get our cases prosecuted here. We need definitely more resources for our youth. I'm an advocate to have youth receive resources on the front end. When our youth receives resources, and I'm talking about counseling, mental health, everything, job training, vocational education, a lot of those things come at the back end where they're already committed or they're already truant. As a probation officer, I saw this. As a mom, I can tell you that they need to come on the front end. We have great programs and services here in DC for our kids, but we need to expand upon those and make sure that they get them in the beginning when they're young, when problems are identified, high risk or at-risk kids are identified early, and that we take those services through their childhood, through their DC public school or charter school environment so that they're not dropped from services after the typical 6 to 8 weeks. We need to move our investments to the front end of our kids. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to Mr. Johnson next.
Thank you. I think you have to advocate for supports for young people, and I also think that we need to have a zero tolerance for violent, felonious crime that's terrorizing innocent but you also have to look at the push and pull causes at the beginning and be present and understand and work creatively to sort of solve problems and understand that about solving those problems, as I have, delivering the Main Street for Petworth, unleashing the creative economy with Petworth Porch Fest, which raises money for businesses in the local economy. You need to not just do one job fair, you need every day a sustained focus on the businesses on Kennedy Street, on Upshur Street, on 3rd Street, on 4th Street in Tacoma. You need to understand what their issues are. Sunday, being double taxed, sales and uses taxes. You need to advocate for Mr. Foreman to get his taxes returned, to not be double taxed, or not be penalized by leaving a table in terms of public space. Shellfish at 5th and Kennedy, when he is investing in 5th and Kennedy, turning it around, he deserves support from his council member to interdict with the Department of Small and Local Business to make sure that the grants that are available to him are there. So it's more than just a job fair. It's that are on Georgia Avenue or on Kennedy Street, making sure that they're involved in the process and accessing governmental resources, getting their tax dollars back. Thank you.
I'm going to repeat the question. It is, what improvements need to be made to the criminal justice system and the Department of Youth and Rehabilitation Services?
Thank you. When we look at our criminal justice system, which in the U.S. has dealt with the issue of structural racism throughout our community, we have to do a few things first and foremost. And the other mom's son is sentenced to a death sentence. I realize this is a zero-sum game. We all lose when our communities are not safe. And so we have to look at one of the first things we look at is the reasons why people are committing crime. And the reasons we got to look at those things is because that's the only way we're going to prevent them. So educational opportunity, economic opportunity, and ending structural racism is one way we have to do that work. When we look at looking at prevention pieces, we also have to do the work to invest in our intervention work. We have to make sure that we give people the tools they need to deal with conflicts and to make sure they're doing it, not doing it in our city. We have guns coming into our city. We got young people using guns in our city. There's no way they can afford those guns. There's no way they should have access to those guns. These are heavy machinery. We need to figure out why these many guns are coming into our city, why we are allowing guns to come into our city. That's something we need to figure out as a city, but we also got to figure it out as a country, because we don't even sell guns in D.C., yet the 12-year-old, 13-year-olds are walking around with guns. We have to have a crime lab that's accredited. We've lost that accreditation, which meant that we could not process any of our DNA, any of our evidence, which means none of our cases could be prosecuted successfully. So we need a crime lab that's accredited and work. And lastly, we have to work together. It can't be just the judicial branch and the executive branch and legislative branch all going at each other. This is collective work. And it can't just be the politicians. It has to be the parents too, and the grandparents too, and the faith communities too. And so that's a collective work that we need to do to also fix the criminal justice system. Thank you.
You know, I'll be 49 later this year. I've been a young man navigating through structural racist problems in our society. They exist. We know that they exist. But we can't deflect, and we have to roll our sleeves up and work on the here and the now. And what does that look like? Well, that looks like engagement. As I have Roosevelt High School. Oh.
Time. Sir, it's only 30 seconds for your rebuttals now, remember?
We
All
need to
right.
engage our communities and engage our.
Any other rebuttals? Okay, all right.
I lost, Madam President.
You- All right, okay. Okay, I want to shift us into a different topic. There is a question that came from the crowd that's on public safety that I do want to ask. I'm pretty sure we're gonna maximize our time here tonight, so let's all get comfortable. Anybody need some stretching? Everybody's okay out there? All right. Everybody's okay virtually, I'm sure you are. Okay. So this question is about NPD. I want to merge it into an affordable housing question about our workforce with police officers and teachers. Is that okay with you guys? All right. So this question says, how do you plan to bring the Metropolitan Police Department back to full strength from a decade low of 3,300? Officers are working, mandatory overtime leading to low morale. And the affordable housing portion of that is, what I just said for our first responders and our teachers. So if you guys are okay with trying to merge that in your 2 minutes that you get, I will be very thankful. Let me go back up to my order I started with Johnston, I think last time. So this time we'll start with Miss Janice Lewis-George.
Thank you. It's been an honor to work with our 4th District Police Department here in Ward 4. Each year we had a new commander because they all get promoted, but it's okay. We started with Commander Griffin, then we had Commander Rao, and then we have Commander Lehman House. The good thing is, because I'm from Ward 4, every time we get a new commander, I always take them around the ward and give them the lay of the land of what's happening. And one thing that officers said about support is facilities-wise, I'm the chair of facilities. I've gone to all of our police stations to make sure that they have facilities they can be proud of. And so that meant fixing the roof at 4th District, that meant fixing the leaks at 4th District, the bathrooms, and doing that work. The council has invested money into recruitment efforts, which was $25,000 signing bonuses, in addition to support with tuition and making sure people could get student loan debt. Instances have been a hard career for people after the pandemic. We lost officers, nurses, teachers, especially, and social workers were the 3 careers where people said, I am done. And so it's been hard for us to recruit as a city in all of those areas, but we've done incentives to make that happen. I have baked in workforce housing and legislation through my social housing legislation. And in that legislation, I actually said we should be building housing instead of just selling housing and using that to build some housing. We should actually be using that housing to build workforce housing. And included in my legislation for social housing was first responders, nurses, teachers, social workers, the careers that we need most. And so if we as a city take on the duty to build affordable housing and to have that housing in our community, then that will have people want to stay here and do the work that needs to happen to make sure that they are okay, but to make sure all of our teachers as well. We have to pay people well. Our teachers are right now fighting for a contract to improve pay. I'm fighting with them to make sure they get their contract. So it's that type of work, paying people, making this city affordable, standing hand in hand with them to make sure that they want to be public servants in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gordon.
So, as you guys know my background, 27 years federal law enforcement. And this question is definitely personal to me because I came out of this career. We all know why it's been tough on law enforcement, especially here in Washington, D.C. The messaging has been tough. The votes have been against law enforcement. The votes have been against protecting citizens. This is an environment set by our council very specifically to take police out of public safety. Plain and simple. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. And I will tell you again, go back to the record and look to see if those votes work better for you or for the person that committed the crime. I was a female special agent raising my son in the southern states. I know about affordable housing and having to live and try to raise him while doing the 24/7 job of federal law enforcement. Thank God I had the money to do it. We have a council member that took votes on affordable housing, particularly regarding public land, voted no on surplus and disposition, over 2,000 affordable units, 2,000 total units, 1,400 affordable units, because she didn't agree with using public land for affordable housing. We have seniors, you didn't vote against surplus? Yeah. Yes, it is. The record shows that, and the hearing record shows that. So, we have to make sure that we strengthen MPD. I support Women 30 by 30 initiative to make MPD women officers stronger. I would love to see a housing credit for female officers as well as a child credit for female officers so that they can do their job and be able to have their kids in housing. And in addition to that, we have to keep supporting MPD and make sure that the messaging from the ward level, from the executive level, is that officers are important, we need them in the city, and that we continue to keep supporting them. Thank you.
Thank you. I would agree that the messaging is important. And again, deflection is not roll up your sleeves and get involved as I have done. I'm the executive committee member of the 4th District Citizens Advisory Council. I've worked with the 4th District and all of those commanders very closely as a AMC in my area of Petworth, which has issues of substance abuse, issues of violent crime, issues of businesses feeling smothered and not being responded to. And I think that you need to listen to educators who did not want SRO officers out of the schools. They had good working relationships in those schools. And if you talk to any educators, as I do, this is the feedback that they give me. You also need to work with the businesses that are on Georgia Avenue that have concerns about crime, that have concerns about the proliferation of retail cannabis shops that don't have good working relationships with their neighbors. And part of being a leader is talking to these businesses as I've had, and help in conflict resolution to make sure that issues of safety get worked out. With respect to affordable housing, yes, I've led this fight as chair of ANC on the Old Engine Firehouse property. There was a process where there were conflicts of interest and some other serious problems that have been unearthed, where public land was to be transferred over to private developers without a robust civic engagement process at the highest and best use. And the firefighters need the training facilities so that young people in our ward can be trained in Ward 4. And I
Start spelling it T-I-M-E. Appreciate you.
When we talk about messaging in 2019, I think we all know where we were in 2019, and it wasn't we're against police officers. It was Black people saying we don't want to be murdered. Everybody in this nation, every city dealt with this because we had the George Floyd, and we had Ahmaud Arbery, and we had all of these things happening. And for 10 years, Black people were being murdered on camera. Tamir Rice. Black people remember this. And so do our allies too. And so the country stood up. John Lewis, Kamala Harris even. And they did the George Floyd and Policing Act. And that was to say, look, we want you to serve in our communities, but we want you to be public servants, and we don't want you to murder our young Black men and our young Black women. Because as mothers, as sisters, as brothers, we're scared sending our Black sons out into the street and hoping they don't get killed. But every Black fraternity, every Black sorority, every Black organization, NAACP, all of us have had as Black people to fight against police brutality at some point. But the notion that we're just saying we don't want to be killed and we want to trust our officers does not mean we don't respect and love our officers and support them. We want ones that that are going to misuse their power and to not be held accountable for it. And so in 2019, it was from DC, loud and clear, every neighborhood, black and white residents said, we want you all to respect all of lives. All of our lives matter. We want to be given that same thing. So I reject the notion, because our ancestors fought for that. And anybody with black sons, black brothers, black sisters, daughters, want their children to be seen as children when they are in the streets and not murdered automatically. There is a way to de-escalate a situation. We saw it happen. And so that was the conversation we had as a country. And I don't think we should apologize for that, because I think it moved us forward. But that doesn't mean that we haven't shown up for our community in a positive way. I think we moved in the right direction of having accountability and doing that work. And I'm proud of this city and the way we stood in that moment and the way we all have stood as a people and moving forward from that moment. Thank you.
Let's stick with affordable housing. So, we'll address the declining stock of truly affordable housing in the city and in Ward 4 specifically. What ideas do you have to improve or increase affordable housing? And how could you make it possible for residents of lesser means to continue to live here in our ward? Let me go back up to my order. Now is the time to start with Councilmember Lewis Shores. All right. With my notes
I'm
say.
excited to talk about affordable housing, because when I ran on the fact that we needed more affordable housing. My family had dealt with displacement, and so many of our families who couldn't afford to stay here any longer. So when I got on the council, I went straight to work on affordable housing, specifically in our ward. The first thing I did was fight against rent hikes. They were trying to raise the rent to 12% in this city. 12% rent hikes were going to happen. While other members on this panel right here were silent when those rent hikes were going up, I fought for our seniors to make sure we cut those rent hikes. I fought for community members who lived on fixed income to cut those rent hikes. And I fought for everyday residents because the rent is too damn high. And I fought, and I introduced legislation through my social housing legislation to deal with, instead of the city giving our land away just for $1 and not producing affordable housing that we need, workforce housing, so we could have the work. I was able to make sure we were able to provide that affordable housing. I have stood with tenants against unsafe and uninhabitable housing right here in Brightwood, where we had to file a lawsuit because tenants were living in unsafe, uninhabitable conditions, and they won that lawsuit, and they were able to get their rent back because of the times that they hadn't done it. And I fought to preserve affordable housing, whether it was 16th Street and Danceloft, Helios Project, where I wrote a whole op-ed why we needed to have that affordable housing, whether it was in Tacoma, fighting to make sure we had 2 bedrooms and 3 bedrooms to have that affordable housing that we needed near a transit location. So we have to use our housing production trust dollars well, and social housing is a tool that I think we need to add to that process. I have always supported affordable housing. I've never voted against a disposition that would not have affordable housing in it, but that's because I see every single day the fight for total rights right now is very fierce. Our Tenant Opportunity Purchase Act, I have fought to sustain total rights for the rent to be displaced. And I fought for my generation to be able to have homes in this city, to be able to have down payments. Right now, when we try to buy houses, we are competing against equity groups that have $500,000 cash payments. They can waive every contingency, they can waive everything, and still be able to get a house, and we're not able to. So I have fought to remove some of those barriers, and that's the work we need to do to improve affordable housing in the city, and the work that I've done for our residents. Thank you.
Next.
So in terms of development of affordable housing in the city, there's a couple of ways that we can go. Obviously production, one also alternative is preservation. I definitely favor increasing in more oversight of the housing, Affordable Housing Production Trust Fund. As a special agent with the IG's Office of HUD, I've always been in a housing fight. I've worked with tenants, I've worked with single-family homeowners, I've worked with mortgage industries, real estate industries, all in an effort to get affordable housing and to make sure that affordable housing is safe. I started my career here in Washington, D.C. in terms of the IG's office, where I worked on affordable housing issues, and particularly public housing authority. So I've always been a person that believed that we need to, for one, strengthen our public housing communities. We have a wait list in DC of about 40,000 people, 40,000 people that are waiting for public housing. I would like to see that repaired. I would like to see definitely more investments in the trust fund, but I think we also have to look at the ways that we can produce affordable housing affordably, and one of that is the public land use but that's not to say that is the only tool in our toolbox. I think we need to strengthen that. We need to make sure that we mandate, if we're going to use public land for public housing or affordable housing, that the more units that are affordable, the better. There's a mix that I would love to see of a third, of a deeply affordable, middle income affordable, and market rate. But I think we need units across the board in DC, not just affordable units, but we need units for everyone. Particularly family units, that's something that we still are weak on. I think the trust fund unit, we're still way behind on that as a city, but I can tell you as an ANC commissioner, our biggest fight is with the community. We have got to make sure that we welcome affordable housing projects in our neighborhoods. I also agree that we have to make sure that our communities have extremely robust participation, because you deserve to have input into what those affordable housing projects look like.
Thank you.
I think that affordable housing is important, and I think we need manifestations of homeowners, residents here being able to stay in their homes, being able to fix up their homes, young people being able to have money to buy into the neighborhood, and we also need tenant protections as well. And we also need follow-through. There's a lot of missed opportunities in Ward 4 with respect to housing. One of them would be the Armed Forces retirement home. It was a big development opportunity tied in with the redistricting process. There was a lot of effort and energy from Councilmember on Ward 5 and Ward 1, and there was missing in action here in Ward 4 in terms of using that 80-acre development opportunity to enact some of this rhetoric that has been missing. Another example of missing of the reality not matching the rhetoric in terms of the OAG settlement. That settlement was 3 years ago. It was a $2 million settlement in 2021. Half of the money, I believe, was taken by the district, and the residents here on the Sheridan Street apartment have not. Press conference, there was a triumphant sort of pronouncement, but the actual residents who live in the property have not gotten dispersed of their monies. So I think it's important to actually look around corners, to be proactive, to advocate for tenants, to advocate for seniors with respect to their property taxes and their assessments. You need to know and market the challenging of the tax assessment process. That's something that's valuable for seniors, for their call. Of affordability and the cost of living in the district for affordable housing. Thank you.
Thank you. I would just say for the Brightwood and Somerset tenants, first of all, Commissioner Candace Nelson, not in this role, but in her ANC role, and I saw Kim Patterson here, has worked with my office day in and day out, and Kim has stepped up to the plate once her new S&D happened. That's a building that has majority Amharic speaking residents, Spanish speaking residents. We brought language access lines in. It is, we did dispersing their funds. They had to fill out complicated forms, and our organizations like Slumlords have showed up as well to help them with those forms. Speaking about follow-through, we didn't just go out there and make sure DOB did the work around fixing it up. We followed through with those residents, and we promised to help them every step of the way, and I'm proud of the work I've been able to do with ANC Commission 4A specifically, who stood with me in those tenants, and we don't take that work lightly. So just want to make sure I correct that, because Commissioner Nelson, as well as Commissioner Patterson, have been stepped up to the plate in a phenomenal way, and all of 4A in fighting for our tenants, which I think is critical and important. And for our seniors, we have the homestead tax exemption, but we also have the stay-at-home program, as well as the single-family rehabilitation program, which I work through oversight to make sure seniors who are on that list were able to get off that list, who were sitting on there for years waiting for their roofs to get fixed, and that's oversight work and follow-through as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me make one quick announcement, Mr. Johnson. If you have a low tag 401, your lights are on. Your lights are on. We want you to have a great battery there and be able to drive home.
We're looking out for you. We're looking out for you.
But it's not automatic.
I want to say something.
All right. Thank you for that, Carl and Lawrence, for giving me that message. Okay. Mr. Johnson. This is a 30-second. Yep.
Sure. The problem is, the facts don't bear out what the Councilmember just said. This settlement was 3 years ago. The initiative to find out and get the monies delivered to those tenants was initiated by an AMC. I believe it was AMC Patterson that initiated outreach with the OAG. And my colleague has connections to OAG, but for some reason, for 3 years, there was no follow-up besides the
And that
press
was
conference
30
about
seconds.
the disbursement of the monies. So those people, the Amharic speaking people who live there,
Mr.
have
Johnson.
yet to receive their disbursements.
You
And
had
that's the
30
difference
seconds.
in rhetoric for follow-through and people actually getting their monies. And that's factual.
And now you've given her to get another second.
I was gonna just give it to the chair.
Because you called her out, but
I was going to give it to the chair because actually the chair, Commissioner Nelson, is the one who initiated the Office of Attorney General complaint alongside me and others. That is absolutely true, but I can go to the chair and she can correct the record if she would like to. Thank you.
I'm not debating tonight. I will say, I've made a call. I sent an email. That is true. All right, so, I'm gonna have to pull my chair up next. I need rebuttals. All right, let's try to get into education. There's actually an affordable housing. Let's see. There is one question that I think seniors may want to hear your answer to. I'm going to try to word this in a way where we can just get a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Okay, so that's like no seconds. No minutes, no whatever. So just get your fist ready. I want a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Instead of giving me your opinion, just tell me, or you could just, yay or nay, to supporting having a cap on property assessments for those who have lived in their homes for 30 years or more. And I was like, what was that? Okay, thank you. So with your, for property assessments, would you be in agreement of having a cap on property assessments for those who have lived in their homes for 30 years or more? That's a thumbs up or oh, seniors, sorry, the seniors are answering. Seniors who've lived in your homes for 30 years or more, can we, put a cap on these property assessments, yay or nay? Thumbs up, thumbs down. I'm missing a thumb. Okay. You got it. Okay. All right. I didn't see it. Got it. All right. We got all the thumbs. Okay, great. Everybody see that online? All right. Let's go to education. I like this one. I'm going straight to the crowd out here. What is the most important thing you to improve DC public schools? I want to emphasize that this is a timed response. We're going to start with Mr. Johnson. We'll go with the last. Come on up. So, what is the most important thing you would do as a council member to improve DC public schools, Mr. Johnson?
Well, as
2 minutes.
as a parent of, I believe, I'm the only one up here as a parent with a child in DC schools, a first grader. I think that equity and parity is important. Safety is important, whether it's passages to and from school, whether it's out of school time opportunities, whether it's transit from those out of school time opportunities with students are important. I think having a secure environment with respect to SRO officers are important. I think mental health and therapeutic supports are very important for schools. I've worked to fill in the gaps in that regard in Petworth with farming schools, of working with organizations, Brightwood, Petworth, Community Association, to adopt a farming school, to raise money through philanthropic efforts, to connect to community groups in the ward to address food insecurity, to address language barriers for therapists in terms of mental health or kids under trauma. And it's also informed not only by being a parent, but I've also substitute taught in high schools, in middle school. And I believe that bringing to bear the community to develop the school, working with parents, advocating for supports, are the most important thing that you can do to improve the safety of schools and the quality of education for schools in Ward 4.
Thank you. We'll go to Ms. Gore and then Jay.
Thank you. So I do answer this question as a mom that has a son in DC public schools and charter schools. He is a graduate. But I answer this question from the perspective of, in order to improve DC public schools, first, I think we have to have the budget and resources that the schools need. I know we are in a tough budget season this year, and there have been cuts to budget or proposed cuts. I propose, and my ANC commission proposed, no cuts to public education. It's just that important. But I think that, thank you. In addition, coming from a parent perspective, to make the school better, there has to be a better working relationship with parents. I had struggles with DC public schools as a mom. My son was born premature, so he had services that he had to have implemented. And I know what it was like, terrifying, working with DC public schools and making sure that he had the services that he needed. So there has to be more communication with parents. Parents have to understand the issues that their kids are having. No parent wants their kid to fail. No parent. And it is traumatizing when you see your kids slipping. You want to know how to bring them back up, and you want to do that immediately. So we need DC public schools. We need to, honestly, to transport our kids on time. We need the school system to work with parents, and it has to be easier. So those are make it easier for parents to understand where their kids are, make it easier to communicate, to understand and navigate the system. I would love to see more legal support for parents with kids with special needs so they can help navigate these systems. Attending those meetings are crazy. And if you don't have the resources to make it work, you're gonna struggle. And that impacts the entire system. Thank you.
Thank you. We community within DC Public Schools listen to our educators, listen to our teachers, listen to our parents. When I listen to our educators, they want facilities where they can feel proud of. The air conditioning works, the heater works, they have the supplies they need. And so we've invested in doing that work around facilities and doing that work. When I listen to educators, they want pay, they want fair time, they want fair wages, they want time to lesson plan. When I listen to educators, they say they don't want a punitive evaluation system that's just based on test scores, but an evaluation system that understands their work and how much we need to teach our students. When I listen to parents, they want to make sure their students are safe at school, which is why I made sure we had safe passage at every one of our high schools and middle schools here in Ward 4. When I listen to parents, they want open communication from the schools, not only on instances of safety, but on all instances. They want constant communication. And when I listen to parents, they tell me they want to make sure our schools are funded fully, so they don't have to supplement from parent-teacher organizations the supplies that their teachers need. And when I listen to students, they tell me that they want emotional and mental support and help because they've been through a lot with the pandemic. That's why I introduced legislation around conflict resolution. They said they want out after-school programs that they can actually do, and so we've expanded out-of-town school programs and supported those. When I listen to students, they say, I may not want to go to college. Can you teach me a trade? Can you teach me vocational education? Can you teach me about computers? Can I go into my career path? And so what we can do to improve our system is fund our schools by listening to our parents, listening to our educators, and listening to our students. And that's what I've done in Ward 4, and I'm proud of the strides we've made for Ward 4 schools as a result. Thank you.
Okay. I don't see any interest in rebuttaling. Let's go to the next question as quickly as possible. Since remote learning with COVID, the entire nation is experiencing high truancy rates, what will you do to support children and teens and keep them in school? Let's start with Ms. Graham.
So that is definitely a true statement. I can, vouch for that for being a mom. I think COVID has really impacted our kids in ways that we don't understand. And I think the social isolation that they experience, the lack of emotional learning that they've experienced, and the lack of connection to community being in the school system has definitely impacted the truancy process. So I think one of the first things we need to do is get to the bottom line of some of the underlying issues with kids. I know that it's not just COVID. I know it's also public safety. I know it's, even though we have safe passage, I know kids they're scared to go to school because there's shootings around school. There's issues and incidents that are happening, and they told us that as well, that they're fearful to go to school. So I would love to see a broader support for the truancy process. Our truancy rates did not get here overnight. It's interesting that the council member and the council started quite some time. We are now at 68%, 72% chronic truancy rate in our Ward 4 high schools, which is really, really high, and we have to figure out a way to get that back. I would like to see a review board where we have someone within the school system that is monitoring the truancy rates in kids real time. We need to change the reporting. I believe that the reporting is once a year or every so many months. We need to know, our truancy rates are so high, we need to know pretty much on a weekly basis. So we have to make some changes. There are proposed legislations out there. We have a couple of them that are coming down the pike. I would love for you guys all to pay attention to that, but I think we need to do a lot more than what we're doing now. And we can't wait until these problems become a crisis to try to correct it. Anytime a kid is out of school, we don't know where they are. They're not particularly safe. And the most important thing is they are losing learning at that time. So we needed to have been on this problem 2 years ago.
Yes, this is a problem that wasn't created overnight. We need to keep our eyes on the ball, and we need to look around corners with respect to addressing these problems. What it takes is a community approach. And the community approach is being involved in the community, as I have been with Roosevelt, for example, in hosting students and being a guest community judge, working with civic associations and bringing resources to the schools to undergird where some of the gaps are, whether the job description is matched with the license requirements. There's not therapists. Teachers at McFarland tell me that there's a problem with Spanish-speaking therapists, for example. There's a problem with therapists being there because the license requirements is mismatched. We need to have a laser focus on that on council to make sure that there's no impediments to making the school environment conducive for students wanting to stay, empowering the parents, empowering the broader community around the school, and having support if enforcement is needed from a school or road perspective to make sure that you bring all of these things to bear to stem the truancy crisis. And as a parent, as a community member, I've been working on these issues and will continue to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. You know, as a DC public school student graduate, the first thing I do when we have issues with students is I ask students. Going to school. The first thing that students talked to me about was transportation as an issue. Students have said, you know, we grew up in a time where we went to neighborhood schools, but our students are in different environments. They go to schools across the city. And so what I've done is focused on how do we improve transportation. One of those things is, for example, the School Connect program at LaSalle Bacchus. The LaSalle Bacchus elementary school students have to go to Ida B. Wells, that's their middle school. That means they have to travel over North Capitol Street, Missouri Avenue, and get all the way to either to the train station and so many unsafe streets. So we worked really hard to get a School Connect program, so a bus shuttle to pick those students up and take them to school. So we have to address transportation if we're going to address truancy. The other thing students say to me is that when they get to school, they are not engaged in the ways they would like to be engaged. I said, what does that mean to you? And so they said, sometimes we're just learning to a test instead of learning in a different way. That's what I talked about earlier, the educators saying the same thing. So we got to stop just teaching to a test. I grew up with old school teachers who taught everything. And so I think it's important that we start not just focusing on teaching to a test, but teaching all the things and making sure we have that. So we have to address that as well. The other things we hear from students is just not feeling well to go to school, not having the food need coming from the housing and things. I address that through my Child Family Services agency. We created a warm line where families and students can call 211 now. And you can call 211 and get services to support you with housing needs, with mental health needs, with education needs as well. And we do that here in Ward 4 through the Georgia Avenue Family Collaborative through Mary Center. We started that because the only time students could get support is if they entered the criminal justice system or if they entered the neglect system. And we were only using educational neglect, which is a high burden. So we took away that burden and opened it up, and we've been able to see it make a difference.
All right, let me do a check-in. Is everybody doing okay? Because I promised these candidates that I would have them for 2 hours, and we're getting close to that time. Are you guys able, is everyone okay if we stay for another 15 minutes?
Yes. Extend the 15 minutes, but also bring up those questions that are not being posed to the candidates that are dangerous.
The questions that are, as I previously stated, the questions that are directed to a specific candidate, we will get you answers to those. But to be fair, I'm asking questions that are addressed to all candidates. Got that?
That's some very good social engineering you're doing.
Well, I'll say thank you.
Bike lane.
Trying to be fair. Yes, next is transportation. Let's get on that. So we've got transportation, one in for budget and social justice, and then we will try to get a kind of catch-all question and have closing statements. All right, that is the plan. Let's see what we can do. For transportation, this one is not about bike lanes, but it's about transportation. What is your plan to deal with the street designs on narrow streets that result in the damages? Okay, somebody's leaning against the wall there, darkening our happy light situation. Let's lean against a different portion of the wall there. Thank you. To deal with the street designs on narrow streets that result in damages to cars and trucks while they're parked, they're being hit. This causes financial problems for residents.
Amen.
All right. All right. Now I start with Ms. Gore.
So I just want to clarify that. Is that, so I hear some folks in the audience, they're saying bikes. Is this just general narrow streets?
This is the street. We know whose question this is. Clarify that for us.
Traffic calming.
Go for that. All right.
Wow. So I
Timekeeper. Go for it.
Okay, so I think definitely that's a street design issue. I do not know, and I'm going to be honest with you, if I don't know how to solve an issue, I'm going to tell you I don't know how to solve it. I've dealt with a lot of transportation safety issues in my ANC, but narrow streets hasn't been one of them. The thing that causes me a little caution is I don't know. That
I live on a one-way Fifth Street.
So the only, I definitely think that is an issue that we could work with DDOT on. I think regardless of what the solution is, it might be issues because I'm not a traffic safety engineer, but I would suspect that one of the solutions that they would probably come up with is to remove cars from the street to make it wider. Because it seems like that would be the answer to prevent, unless you close off cars to the street. But
The street is narrow because they put in a bike lane.
All right,
Okay.
timekeeper, please pause the time for a second. I gotta talk to some of
so
the
that's what
One second,
I
please.
asked in terms of clarification at the very beginning.
Ladies and gentlemen, no talking in the crowd. Remember that no distractions rule at the beginning?
Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay, I did say no distractions. And I'm just reminding you again, no distractions.
Okay, so I want to make
Oh,
sure.
let me get the timekeeper so she can readjust her time. Okay, ready? All right, trying to be fair here to 9 to 10 attendees and everybody. Okay. Yes, ma'am?
Okay.
We started the time, we go. All right, no distractions.
I need to make sure that I understand. Does the question include bike lanes being on that street that are too narrow, or does it not?
It does not.
It does.
That's not the
Question.
That's why she asked.
I didn't put that one.
So let me answer the question. Will bike lanes
Please
be on the
answer
street?
the question
Okay, so
that I read, and ma'am, if you could,
Right.
silence, please.
Okay, so
That's
I
the way
think
I
I answered the question as you asked it, Candace, is to work with DDOT to see. I honestly don't think there could be a widening. If there is a bike lane on the street, I think you would go back to DDOT and ask them to reassess. If there's property damage, I think you would also need to work to see if you can figure out which cars are doing the damage and hold those people liable. But if it's a bike lane issue on the street, then my suggestion and what I would support is going back to DDOT to see if you're continually having that issue. If the street is too narrow, then a bike lane might need to come up.
That was so interesting. Mr. Johnson, if you need me to read the question again.
So we need a council member that listens to all the residents and enacts solutions that make sense and doesn't allow people in our community who have mobility concerns or questions about road design be bullied or their views diminished. I've dealt with this issue intimately in Petworth as a AMC chair in 4C. There's been a lot of projects and that have been rammed down people's throat in ways that don't make sense. And there has not been, the council member has not asserted herself standing up for seniors, for multi-generational residents of homes who may have multiple cars, people who have questions about walking across the street, structural changes to circles like Grant Circle, changing without notice streets on 5th Street. There's been near silence despite sitting on the Transportation Committee. And it's why it's very important to listen, and it's very important to give the same message in one audience that you go to. You got to give a consistent message, and you got to advocate for people who are not on social media, who are being villainized, and you got to do the right thing by people. And an example of that is the bus lanes in Georgia Avenue. When I go to meetings and there's not demographic representation that are opining on these major changes to Georgia Avenue, what I do is I go to faith-based institutions, First Baptist Church, where the seniors who take the bus to go to church, and I bring DDOT to that community to give them an opportunity to opine and give some input on the matter. That is how you act. That is how you act in the spirit of broad-based community engagement. And we don't have enough of that in Ward 4. And we need more of that. We need something that makes sense with respect to transportation.
We're trying to get to as many questions as we can, so let's call our turn.
Thank you. I've been one of the fiercest advocates for Ward 4 as it relates to transportation and environment. And it's because what I've had to deal with. We lost, and I unfortunately got to the scene early, Zaire Joshua, who was a 4-year-old who was hit and killed on Georgia and Kennedy, and his body laying on the street. The 4th District officer tried to resuscitate him, blood coming out, and he had to be taken to a hospital. We drove to Children's Hospital Center, and he didn't make it. Timothy Abbott in Tacoma, the intersection where Tacoma ANC commissioners had advocated for changes, was struck, hit, and killed, a graduate of Coolidge who had a future in front of him. So when I look at transportation issues in our ward, I am fierce about it. I have done a number of things, even to push DDOT on it. I think of instances like Iowa and Arkansas, where they told me they weren't going to make any changes even though we were having crashes every day. They said they didn't have the evidence to substantiate it. My staff knocked doors in that neighborhood, collected photos, collected pictures. We put forward emergency legislation and threatened to put it forward until they did something. I got a call and said, Councilmember, if we do this emergency legislation for you, every other ward will do it. I said, I don't care what every other ward will do. We need a change here. The next day I got a call, Councilmember, if you remove that emergency legislation, we will issue the NOI and we will get it done. And we were able to get it done. The seniors at Colony House have been trying to cross that street, that stoplight. I did the same thing, brought the news out. I said, seniors, I want y'all to tell them how you've been impacted. They said, well, it doesn't say. I said, well, let me collect the evidence, and I did it. And we were able to get a stoplight. Families, every single one. In Ward 4, we had 4-way stops. We had 2-way stops because they never contemplated a population of our size. So we have so many streets where cars are about to crash people, and DDOT says, oh, we can't substantiate that, we don't have the crash data. I have gone out, collected that crash data, and said, here's the evidence we needed, and I've gotten 4-way stops across our ward. So I've used every tool I can to improve traffic safety because I care about the lives of our seniors and our students and our families on our roads. Thank you.
30 seconds.
I think the way we speak about this is important, not to be polarizing on this issue. We're all concerned about safety. There's no one group that's more concerned about safety than the others. But it is also true that bike lanes aren't raceways, you know? When seniors are trying to cross the street, or young people are trying to cross the street, or people that are mobility challenged, the design needs to be thoughtful and it needs to be engaged in the community so that it is safe for all participants. And I'm happy to have had a four-way stop
That's
sign
30
initiated
seconds.
in my community at Fifth and Webster. So
TIME time, 30 seconds. Thank you so much. All right. Almost to the 15 minutes I asked you for. All right. Okay, so let's go ahead and skip to another question here. We'll go to social justice questions that were in that category. How do you plan on getting the unhoused people to vote for you? Let's start with Councilmember Lewis George.
Honestly, I just want to get unhoused people housed. That's the primary thing that we need to do. It's not about a vote in regards to them, it's life and death. We had a unhoused resident who used to live on this corner right here. And he lost his life. My team worked with him for months. We built a relationship with him. We loved Mr. Ashmore, was his name. David Ashmore, 88 years old. Whenever you went to the Georgia Avenue thrift store, you would see him. He had severe medical issues. He had severe trauma, mental health issues. And it took us 6-7 months to build trust with him, to get him to fill out forms. And they said, oh, he'll never fill out the form, don't try it. My team stayed persistent, and we got him to fill out the form because we built trust with him. I said, here's the form you said he would fill out. I was relentless in making sure we do that. They said, well, he'll never go look at apartments. So I said, Mr. Ashmore, what you need? We were taking him to get groceries. We were supporting him in his work. And we were able to get Mr. Ashmore to go look at the Caring House, the senior housing. Actually, first time somebody got him to go into a house and look at that housing and see it. Our unhoused neighbors need compassion. They need patience. Relentless coming back. Many of them, like him, are on the street for 35 years. They don't trust government. And they don't trust government because how government has treated them. So a vote is the last thing. They need to be able to trust government. The work I've done there, on my first council, when I passed the Homes and Hearts Amendment, which not only raised the pay for child care educators and earned income tax for families who need it, it also provided additional vouchers for those unhoused residents who need it, so they could have the housing that they need and the permanent supportive housing and support that they need. So the way we support our unhoused residents and being consistent and relentless in that. We can talk about a vote later, but get them housed first. Thank you.
My call on the next person.
I didn't know what you
Mr. Johnson?
Sure. Well, you need to grow the base. You need to grow the economic base so that unhoused, the people can age in place, and you have to know what your neighbor's concerns are. If a senior is not able to age in place, or is displaced by a fire, or is displaced because a caregiver has passed, you need to have robust constituent services and relationships in your community to be able to tend to their needs. And I think that talking to you have to have a solution to the housing problem of being in a house. You can't just warehouse people in place and don't offer any solutions. You have to give people skills, training, and provide them a pathway to re-enter, whether it's vending, whether it's street vendors, whether it's working with street vendors on Georgia Avenue that are being harassed and need to make money, whether it's the aging senior that can't afford the taxes on their property or can't afford the upkeep. You have to have a preventative strategy, You have to be engaged with your community to understand what their concerns are. And you have to walk and chew gum at the same time, not just empty sloganeering about people being unhoused.
Ms. Gore? So, I would definitely like to thank the person that asked that question, because I think a lot of times our unhoused neighbors get overlooked. I do agree that getting unhoused housing is a priority and should be a top priority, but I also think that we can also integrate unhoused residents into the voter process, into the public education process around voter registration, around making sure that they voice their priorities in upcoming elections. One of the things that we could have all done is maybe had unhoused residents here at this forum. So there's room to grow, there's room to include them in the voice of this conversation. They are often left out. And I thank the person that asked this question, because you are giving all of us an opportunity to think about ways that we can introduce them into this process. And I
Thank you. Okay. Let's get to those wrap-up questions and then to your closing statements. And I do thank you guys for staying an additional 15 minutes with us. And I thank all of you and all of you. So, let's see. I think this question I can merge and just say, why are you the best candidate? And that was with my question. So why are you the best candidate? And what are 3 top priorities for the ward that you would have over the next 4 years? Okay? All right. Let's start with Mr. Johnson.
Thank you. I'm the best candidate because of my passion, because of my creative ability to problem solve, because of my background and wealth of municipal finance and budgeting. I understand how to read a balance sheet. I've been an entrepreneur in the food industry. I work in Union Kitchen. I understand about the diverse workforce of the district and about hiring and creating pathways through workforce development to give people jobs, whether it's returning citizens, whether it's newly arrived Americans. I have worked in government affairs. I can talk to diverse constituencies that are represented in our ward, whether it's west of the park, whether it's east of the park, whether it's southern part of the ward, whether it's the periphery around Maryland. And I think that I'm focused on pragmatic solutions to these problems, and I roll my sleeves up and get the job done on the ground in the community, whether it's in jails, whether it's teaching in schools, whether it's working on the line with workers, or talking to young people. I bring all these qualities to bear with a reasonable perspective to get things done, and focused on economic development, jobs, and growth, so that Ward 4 can prosper, and that is why I'm the best candidate for Ward 4. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Lewis George.
I'm the best candidate for this job, and I'm continuing to do, because I'm the type of person that has something. It's not just the hard work ethic that I've learned. It's not just the values and the experience I've had of dealing with displacement. It's not just being a former prosecutor. The job experience, all of those things are different. What I have is something called the ability to make a way out of no way. And I've made a way out of no way for this board in so many different circumstances. When they said we weren't going to solve the overcrowding issues at Roosevelt, I went into real estate agent mode and found somewhere where we could put our Roosevelt and State students so we could deal with overcrowding. found a solution for Bria and Truesdale when they said they were gonna have to go to Ward 1. I made them way out of nowhere when they said they were gonna take librarians out of school and said they didn't have the funds. Economic investment in our community, earned income tax credit to working families that needed it most, making sure our unhoused residents fought against rent hikes, made sure that all of our schools facilities were there. The day before school starts, I was at Tacoma one time until 11 p.m. at night, making sure that air conditioning went back on. I'm a council member who shows up, and I use every tool I have, whether it's the budget and making sure we have libraries and support, whether it's oversight, calling to bear the agencies who are not servicing our ward well, whether it's constituent services, making sure I have senior office hours every Wednesday so our seniors don't have to call, they can meet me here in the ward at Hattie Homes. Join my Listen As We Climb, our care days, our weekly newsletter. The only council member in this city who does that type of work. I have raised the bar for what it means to be a council member. And so what you get out of me is someone who's going to fight for you and with you. No matter what place you are in this city, in this ward, I have fought with you and for you. And I will continue to use every tool I have to get results and deliver for Ward 4 every single day. Thank you.
So, to answer that question, I think I'm the best candidate for this position because of my background and my experience and my overall commitment to public service. I've been in public service for over 27 years, and part of that, most of that service is not only serving kids and families, but also protecting communities from harm. The number one issue in this ward is public safety. I'm the only person in here that has a 27-year career of delivering public safety, not only in Washington, D.C., but in communities all across the United States. I've worked with kids, I've worked with families, I've worked with agencies, I've concentrated on affordable housing, I've worked to make sure that our homes are safe and secure, that tenants are safe and secure, that women are protected against landlords from sexual quid pro quo. I did that in a job that was a 24/7 job, 7 days a week. I never stopped. And I'm still working, I'm still not stopping. As soon as I got out of my career in public law enforcement, I jumped straight into the ANC, where I continue to do those work, I continue to serve my community, and I continue to answer the call of neighbors. The neighbor that needed the mattress that has been laying on its sidewalk off of Missouri Avenue for 6 months. I went and my team went and got that mattress cleared in 2 days. When other people see it every day, walk by it every day, and did nothing. We went over there multiple days, multiple times, took pictures, talked to the neighbors, understood the question, and got it done. That's how I work, and that's how I will work for Ward 4. Our number one issue is public safety. Right after that is constituent services, and I understand the council member thinks she's done an excellent job in that. But I know what you're saying. I know what people have said to me, and you all do too. If constituent services and public safety was done right in this ward, we wouldn't be here. But we are. Thank you.
This is a closing statement?
Yes, sorry. Unless do you have a rebuttal? Normally.
No, I'll just edify the point that when I talk
Normally you did, not a rebuttal, I mean, not a reiteration, or whatever, a rebuttal.
I appreciate it. So, I'm concerned about the ward, I'm concerned about where we're going, I'm concerned about the ability to think creatively and out the box. I'm concerned about the tendency to deflect and blame others and not dig in and work creatively to solve problems. I think that, and I'm concerned as a parent, as a father who has been called with my first grader, with my school DC bilingual, being called about lockdown.
That's 30 seconds. Rebuttal of 30 seconds.
Yeah.
You'll get 2 minutes for it, though. Councilmember, do you have a rebuttal? Gordon, do you have a rebuttal?
Constituent service is so important. Council members, we have our staff, a team of six staff members, sometimes 10. We have two per people that we do the constituent services. And my constituent services team has been amazing. I've always made sure we had somebody who was Spanish speaking to deal with that population. We also have them hard speaking because we have a multi-diverse ward. And I do the office hours every Wednesday specifically for our seniors so they can get the constituent services they need. But when you have agencies that are not working, it is a systemic problem. You shouldn't have to call the council members and get things fixed. We need some agencies is how you also improve the work of constituent services. My team works relentless, so much so that we had people calling from Ward 8, 5, Ward 7 calling my constituent services team because that's how responsive we were. So I'm proud of our work. Thank you.
Okay. And so now, let's have our closing statements. Ms. Gore, let's start with you.
Thank you. So I just want to take the time to thank everyone for coming out tonight.
You're going out of the camera. For the folks who are.
On a serious note, thank you all for coming out tonight. I really appreciate it. And when I saw everyone in the audience, including commissioners from across the park, from people from east side of the park, from all over Ward 4, it really warmed my heart. I can't tell you how much it meant to me to see a cross-section of people from the area. Again, you know my top issue is public safety, but the other thing that I want in this ward is unity. We are a divided ward. We are divided. Public safety has divided us. Progressive versus moderate has divided us. Social media has divided us. We all have a right to be at this table. And we all have a right to fight for you. And that's what we're doing. That's what I'm doing. And if I'm elected as a council member, not only will I fight for all of you all, for your public safety, for top constituent services like we're used to in Ward 4, but that we are a better, more unified ward, that we come together. We need more time to just talk with each other. We need more time to commune with each other. We need to understand that the only way to make Ward 4 better is to do it together. We have to let these bygones be bygones and let people respect each other for who they are and the position that they have. I can't make the ward better if you can't help me to make it better. So we all need to work on that, and that's what I'm going to do as your next council member. Thank you.
Yeah, this is great. I thank you all for being out. We're looking forward to a spirited campaign in the election. I know many of you here have worked with many of you and worked successfully with many of you, and I feel that it's very important in our ward. As our ward goes, the district goes. And I think it's very important to work with the executive, to work with your legislators, to work on solving problems in a way that affects people and how they live, with their cost of living, with their ability to stay in their homes, with their ability to address tax increases on property tax rates, the value of their properties, to protect tenants, to work inside our communities, to help them get the supports and resources that they need, to work with federal partners on economic zones and empowerment zones, unleash the creative economy of small businesses, of immigrant-owned businesses, women-owned businesses, black-owned businesses. And in order to do those things, you have to have a broad base of professional and personal experiences. You need to have passion for the people. You need to be able to go to diverse constituencies, and you need to follow up, and you need to follow through. And I'm asking, standing before you, to represent you on the DC Council, and I look forward to knocking on your doors, canvassing, phone banking, and my name is Paul Johnson, and thank you for coming here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for being here tonight. Say that all the work that I've been able to deliver on has been in collaboration in this board with our faith leaders, with our ANC commissions, with our citizens associations and our civic associations as well. And I'm going to continue to lead with you because I lead with some of the best leaders in this city, in this ward particularly. Ward 4, I call it the distinguished Ward 4 because we are distinguished in how we lead and how we work. And I'm going to continue to work hard for Ward 4 and deliver results. My next term, I'm going to be focusing on our schools, addressing the facility needs, but also addressing the overcrowding issues that we are having, protecting our school boundaries, and making sure we can meet the needs of our early childhood education leaders and also meet the needs of our education. I'm going to be transforming our Georgia Avenue corridor all the way up Georgia Avenue. We need to make sure we get rid of the many vacant, blighted buildings and get some lucrative and small businesses that are going to support our community. So transforming is what I'm going to do. I'm going to make sure we get the Kennedy Street Library, the modernized Juanita Thornton Library, the modernized Upshur, Emory Recreation Center, Lamont, and so many more. I'm going to focus on affordable housing, passing the social housing legislation that does provide workforce housing as well as deeply affordable housing. Approach that I have done to Kennedy Street, that intervention work, that prevention work, that enforcement work we were able to do on Kennedy Street, that we've been able to do in pet work, we're going to bring it to every single neighborhood and get the same results. We've seen a reduction in crime on Kennedy Street, we've seen a reduction in crime around pet work, and while we're making those strides, there's more strides to make. And I want to say public safety is the #1 issue we face, but public safety is also housing. Public safety is also education. Public safety is also economic opportunity and fair wages. And so you can't just focus on one part of it. You got to focus on all of it. And I'm going to continue to deliver legislation and do the work to make sure we do it. So if you want a council member